Okay, right, we're just taking a little bit of a detour. This is from the main road towards Banhoek via Stellenbosch as we going towards Rainbow's End. So this is the long road that you turn into. So as you can see, this mountain range is called the Groot Drakensteen. And on our right, we got the Jonkershoek Mountains. So it's a beautiful, beautiful valley. It's the most amazing road that funnels its way through these little farms and places. Really, really spectacular. Here, so we got Capensis on our right hand side. It's a spectacular valley, really, really beautiful. Okay, so this is called the Banhoek Valley. We're going to get Anton later on when we're going to go to his house, and Anton is going to give us a very nice description of all the history that his family's got involved with Banhoek Valley, which is right through there. Apparently something to do with a lot of leopards in this area many, many moons ago. The mountain range at the back over there, which was on our back as we proceeded towards Rainbow's End, is called Simonsberg. Simonsberg in Afrikaans. Okay, now we're coming to the farm. We're going to take a slight left, and as you can see, signage of the Rainbow's End. Okay, as we enter the farm, I'm just going to hand you over to Anton quickly.
Hi guys, my name is Anton Malan. I'm one of the very privileged family members to operate this land. It's me and my brother. I make the wine, my brother does the verticals and vineyards. Here we go into the entrance. You'll see Rainbow's End there. It says Wine Estate Wijnlandgoed, which basically means that we're not allowed to buy grapes outside of the borders of the farm. The border starts here on the right hand side. So all the grapes going into the wine comes from the farm itself, and I think that's a massive asset or attribute, because if you know you're in a great area, because we're sitting here at the top of the Banhoek Valley. So we're the last farm here. The original owner owned all of the land where we turned off, where the video started, and the last farm he sold to my father was Rainbow's End, which is this farm here. In 1978 that was. So I was 1 year old, and I was one of 4 kids, so we're lucky to be one of the 4, and me and my younger brother decided to do this project with my father. Yeah, and the estate means that, like I said, it's all our grapes itself, which I think is important, because then you can get consistency in your wine each year from the same land. And we grow with the vineyards. Most of the vineyards is planted in 2001. I did it with my father, and then my brother went on with the journey when he joined 2005. So we work with this vineyards every year, where we're going to go up the mountain now and show you the whole terroir. And I think with this amazing soil, we have the red oak leaf, red Hutton soils, which is deep decomposed granites, very good water retention. So with being in Africa, warmer climate, through the drought years, the soils is a fantastic, as well as the fountain, where we're going to also show you now. Yeah, Deus Ex Mea is the Latin for God is our heritage. It's the Milan family crest. My dad's very proud of that, and was it French Huguenots that flew from Provence, near a town close to Avignon, a town called Merendal, which I have visited. So yeah, they flew, and then the original forefather was Jacques Milan, which is also now coincidentally also my father's name. So that's the family crest. So family important things, the location and the family thing, I think that's very important for us. You can see also here On the right hand side, we want to diversify. My brother, this is his projects on the right hand side and on the left. He's got pin cushions that is now starting to flower. It's a combination of Succession, Mayoba, orange Mayoba Sun. On the left is a beautiful white king protea. So we're rotating the land also. So we've got the whole land is 28 hectares, which is relatively small, but it's definitely enough land to operate a good wine business. But of this land, we've now got basically 15 hectares of vineyards, and the other 13 hectares is flowers, which I felt was we made that decision to diversify, stick with the quality, not build a massive cellar and get commercialized, keep it boutique and small. So yeah, at the top you'll see we're now physically planting Cabernet Franc vines. My favorite varietal. We're very serious about Cabernet Franc, but you'll see the cover crop in between the rows, and then here they are planting as we speak. Look at the swirls here, lovely red oak leaf, red apple swirls, decomposed ground, and quite a big clay content. You'll see the freshly planted vines. We've obviously planted in a row, with the row width being 2.5 meters. In between the vines it's about 1.5 meter, sorry, 1.3 meters in between the vines. So you work this out, part of your terroir planning, your width of the rows, and also your spacing between the vines, which is important according to your grow potential of your soil. And so we'll plant it now, we'll cut it back to 3 buds, and then we just let the vine rest, let the rootstocks develop for a whole year. We're not trellising anything, and then next year around about September, when it starts, bud break starts, from next year we'll start trellising it on the vine. So we still use the 3-wire pedal system. You'll see now in the older vineyards, which is established, but yeah, it's now planted, and then afterwards we'll come and make it neat and cover up the holes properly. It's important that your holes is also made loose properly, that the roots can develop nicely. Here's our massive big corporate office. Here you see the amazing terroir. So our best vineyards is at the top there. So you'll see the Merlot goes up to 600 meters above sea level. That bare land at the top, we had a terrible fire, and that there was a flower lands there of Sylvias, but that destroyed it. But to that top is our Merlot, which is the highest lying Merlot, under correction, probably one of the highest lying Merlots in South Africa. And that's very important, especially for Merlot, because it's a difficult varietal that doesn't like heat. So we planted it where it's a little bit cooler. On the left here, you'll see the tasting room, which we built in COVID. So we used to do all the tastings in the family house where I now been living since 2010. So when we started to market the wines and sell the wine from a farm, we did it out of the family house from 2003. When 2002 was the first wine I made, 2003 was the first wine that we released, and we sold it out of the main family house, which will go there now. But when COVID did it, just, and we then also were proud to say that we actually, out of farming produce, made enough profit to start this tasting room project. And since January 2022 we opened up, and it's been a massive asset. So you guys must come and visit this amazing place. We'll go to the tasting room at the end of this journey. On the left you'll see we just pruned the Shiraz. So we use the 3-wire pedal system. You see 3 wires, and it's just now been pruned to 2 buds. So it's all about balance in your vineyards. You know, you don't want to overcrop the vine. Also don't want to undercrop, although that generally doesn't really happen. But if you overcrop, your acidity falls away. You want to balance in acidity, pH and sugar levels. So cutting it back to 2 buds, we take 2 shoots up to above the top wire. We tip it there, and then we have about 1 bunch per shoot, and then after the variation of the coloring up of grapes, then we throw down the grapes to a balance, that there's a balance between your amount of leaves per bunch. You want a certain amount of leaves for proper photosynthesis, and then you got enough acidity. Your acidity, pH, sugar level must be in balance when picking your grapes. That's the science of it. The art is obviously tasting the grapes. I started walking into the vineyards. I started in 2000 with my dad, and then I was obviously planting with my father, but then 2005 my brother took over the farm and took all the vineyard practices over. But I started walking in the vineyards about a month before harvest, see how the grapes develop, which is nice between me and my brother. He knows the style of wine we want to make and what is successful for us and what people and the consumer want, and I know enough about the vineyards because I farmed it, establishing it with my father from 2000 up till 2005, where we planted a big portion of the land. So it's nice that me and my brother have a good, we don't need to really discuss anything. It's sort of a natural process, and the fight always is between the viticulturist and the winemaker. That's always, the winemaker always wants to throw down more bunches generally, and the viticulturist wants to have very good tonnage per hectare. But with us knowing each other's games, it's nice, and living together and growing with the land. My brother was born here, I was 1 when we came here, so it's a privilege to have that.
Hi, I'm Franco Milan, the viticulturist of Rainbow's End, one of the family team members. So with my brother and me, we together form a team on the farm that tends to the vines, and I tend to the vines, and he looks after the cellar and tends to the wines on the farm. So just to quickly tell you something about myself, I was one of I'm actually the only family member that was born on the farm. So I've been living here for 42 years, and since I can remember, my passion was always farming. So I can remember as a little boy growing up on the farm, I always wanted to do something on the farm, and of course that's where the love of the vineyard started. So we first worked with a very well-known viticulturist or viticultural consultant, Professor Eben Archer, and he did a whole terroir study of the farm and gave us like a layout and what he thinks is the best variety suited for the best areas and sites on the farm. And definitely when we looked at the terroir, it's this whole area, it's definitely a top red wine area. So we decided to focus on the Bordeaux varieties, very well known for, which is our flagship variety. And then on the lower western lying slopes, which is more warmer slopes, that's the beauty of this whole property, is we've got such a variation in topography on one small piece of land that actually every little site is suited to a specific variety. So we've got western facing slopes, southern facing slopes, northern facing slopes, all on one property, which makes it ideal for certain red varieties. So we've planted our Shiraz is more on south and east facing slopes. It's a bit cooler, you don't get that late afternoon sun on the big Shiraz bunches, which tend to burn in direct sunlight. So that's where the Shiraz vineyards is sitting. And then as you go up on our northern slopes, the bottom part of the northern slopes is Cabernet Franc. Right at the top we've planted Merlot blocks, which likes the high altitude. It's a bit cooler at the top. Merlot ripens right at the beginning of the season, which is of course in the Western Cape our hottest time of the year, beginning March, end February. So we try and plant it high up where we get some cool mountain breezes, the cool southeaster in summer that cools down the vineyards at the top. And then looking to our hottest slopes, our lower lying, bit more western facing, is where our Cabernet Sauvignon is planted. It's the variety that ripens right at the end of the season. So we want some heat on the Cabernet just to get it properly ripe. And then right at the bottom of our farm, opposite the river, we've got it's also red oak leaf soils. The whole farm is pretty much red oak leaf soils with a variation in stone content, which also gives character to the wine. So on the other side of the river we've got lots of rock, very rocky soils, and that's where we planted our Petit Verdot and Malbec. especially the Malbec does well there. It's also got big bunches, big berries, and that rocky soil, it keeps the berries a bit smaller. So it's every little site is got its own planning behind it.
Here we are, guys. Look at this. You've got the Jonkershoek mountain up there. We had this terrible fire, but look at those slopes. It's massive steep slopes. Goes up to 600 meters above sea level. On the left, there you go. Boom. You've got the Banhoek Kloof. The Picker Mountain, the Banhoek Kloof, where the Dutch guys first found this valley, and they called it the Banhoek because there's still leopards in this kloof. Here we've got a nice Shira block, just been pruned to the 2 buds I just explained. And then our land goes, there's the tasting room, the land goes up till that boundary there, goes up there. You'll see what is amazing is this dam which leaked a lot. We built it. I just came back from France where I worked at the cellar there in Chateau Crop Beausejour, which was in France and just out of Saint-Emilion. I came back, in the first few weeks I came to the farm, my entry level was this dam my father built, and the flipping thing leaked because the geologists didn't test the water with enough time, and then the ground gets dispersive of this decomposed granites. So you see the lining on the dam. So the lining, at the end of the day, we had to line this dam, which set us back quite a bit. I mean, the lining was more expensive than the building of the dam. But what is amazing about this dam is the water is all gravitation fountain water, which we're going to look at the fountain next to the old family house. There's a natural spring there, and that natural spring water gravitates down to the dam. We've got a pump station next to this dam wall, which pumps the water right up to the top. Vineyards doesn't need a lot of water, especially on the soil, so you use most of this water for the flower side. But on the top lying vineyards, and most of the vineyards, we've got drip irrigation where we do 1 or 2 or 3 irrigations per year. Rather too little water and too much, but on your Merlots for sure you need about 3 irrigations. But it's amazing that we've got this fountain that is a natural spring, that we're blessed that we have this this resource that we have. So we went up now, and we got to this block. It's block 13, and it's very sentimental memories actually here, because this was when I came in 2000. My father planted these vines, and then I came here in November 2000. And then I realized this was the first block of vineyards that we planted, a Syrah planted in 2000, which is very unique because you got this big southeasterly wind, that you've got a massive wind that comes into and hits this slope. So we had to plant this north-south. So normally you want to plant east-west, like the southeasterly blows through the vineyards. But this slope you can't go east-west because the slope is just too steep. So we had to plant this windbreaks. That's why these Chinese poplars are still standing, although it's a bit deplenished. But that was the split. We had a split of this, what we call a clone. So when you plant your vineyard, you've got your varietal, and then you've got your rootstock. But on the rootstock, it's grafted your specific clone. And this clone is an Argentinian clone, which has got a number 9, which is clone 9, Argentinian clone. And that's the top side of this original block. And at the bottom side, you've got the clone 99, which is a French clone. So it's a combination of these clones. And the clones was amazing because I made these wines separately in the barrel. We're going to end off in the barrel cellar, where you're going to physically see in the barrel the clone number that I label. So we identified the clones, which we selected nursery, and then we made each one separately. And I mean, I'm not a guy that believes theory very easily. So I want to see if this clone 9, for instance, is classified as giving X, Y, and Z characters to the wine. Is it really like that? And we had the opportunity to play around and make it separately in the barrel. This clone, we saw this is the characters this specific clone gives you, which has got a massive influence on the wine. You've got more differential taste profiles within clones within one varietal than different varietals, and people don't realize that. And the clone scientific thing, part of your terroir, came into South Africa probably in the 80s, and the first guy here in the Banhoek which I have to really give recognition to, was Giles Webb at the Lima. He was the first guy that did the scientific thing of selecting rootstocks, selecting clones with a viticulturist. So a lot of the old vines, you've got a lot of, there's a lot of heavy thing about old vines worldwide and also in South Africa, which I love. But a little bit of a problem of that is the very old ones, there's no data of what clone it is. So as long as the wine is great, that's the bottom line. But it would have been interesting. But this wine is now 25 years old. So it would be nice to, it can be classified as an old vineyard from, I think, from 30 years old. So, but all the classifications we've got and all the clones we made separately, and we know what we want and what clones work for us. So the syrup, for instance, these two clones combined with that slope there, you'll see the tasting room at the back. That slope there is a southern facing slope. So we could, because the slope it's not so steep up as it's planted, that slope there, we planted east-west, which is definitely your, in my opinion, most favorable direction of planting vineyards, because then you've got your wind, that your heavy southeasterly that blows through the rows, also your summer cooling wind that blows through the rows, where with a north-south facing, you have to treat morning sun grapes versus your afternoon sun grapes. There you got a more, but that is the most popular and I think the most successful planting direction if you can physically do it on the slope. So all the slopes on the farm is planted east-west except this one, which was too steep. So yeah, I think let's move on. And there's another shot of the, like I said, the Groot Lagerstein, Pikke, Jonkershoek. And those blocks at the bottom there's a river running through there. We've got 6 permanent families on the farm that grew up with us, that's still living here. But on that side of the river, you've got the Malbec, and then you've got Petit Verdot. So the Malbec Petit Verdot is on that side, which is basically planted for blending purposes, which I'll explain now. Because on the blending, we've got a product called Family Reserve, which we're going to taste and talk about. If there's 1 or 2 barrels that's good enough coming out of the Malbec or Petit Verdot, that goes into the Family Reserve. So let's move up. At the homestead, there's the family house. What was amazing is in this 2 doors in here, we started the winemaking journey. Because what happened is I worked for a guy called Oliver Laporte in France, and we planted now all these vineyards in 2001. And our money was gone. Well, my dad's money, he had a bit of money out of his engineering practice, which he closed with my grandfather, and he said, well, the money is gone now. We cannot afford building a massive cellar with all this fancy equipment. And we said, okay, what are we going to do now? Because we want to start making wine. So either have to rent space, which we don't want to do, because we want to keep the estate and all on the farm. And then the guy came here, an old Frenchman, and Olivier said, man, Jacques, Anton, get the flipping cars out of here and start in your garage. And this is how it all started. It's now not a working cellar anymore, but this is how it went. And now we made the wine in the first 20 years of winemaking. So it's all about the grapes. That's the important thing. But you can. Okay, so here we are. So what we did is we got food quality plastic fermentation holders, and we built bricks around it with a polyurethane. It's a foam in between the outside of the tank and the brick. So we got the isolation in here. My father obviously helped a lot here. Also my brother is quite scientific and technical, but my father, especially here in the beginning days, he helped with this system where we we built the bricks with the lining around the tanks for the isolation. So it's basically open tank fermenters. I'm a very traditionalist, and I always think the more you can do with the hand, the better. If you're on a small scale, we had to expand this because it got too small. But you can make just as good as wine out of this than our new cellar that we built. But you used to use this old basket press. I'll show you when we get to the other cellar, the new modern, but I'm still a firm believer of a basket press where you can control exactly your press wine. And yeah, basically I'll show you that side, how we bring in the grapes, but it's all hand picked. It goes into a destemmer, into a sorting table. Grapes gets pumped into the tanks. We do a cold maceration, which is quite unique because we pump the water from the fountain, which we still do with the new cellar. From the fountain, we pump the water through stainless steel Weidemann plates, which I'll show you now how those plates looks like. And it's a circular system where you bring the fountain in, the water in from the fountain through the plate and back into the fountain. So that is our cooling system where we can ferment between 25 and 28 degrees Celsius. Beforehand, we do a cold maceration where we bring it down to 12. So we use then the fountain water, but it's not cold enough, and we built this old mash cooler. Got it second, and it's got a coil inside. I guess the old cellar with open tank fermenters with the cooling through the water. So the water runs, you'll see the pipes in there, goes into the mash cooler, into the coil, and that brings the water down to about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius that goes into the plate. So that was our cooling system. Also, we used a bit of dry ice for the carbonic maceration, and this is how we used to make, I think, fantastic wines in this system. So yeah, my heart still lies. Maybe when I'm an old man and everyone, I don't know who takes over, the family takes over, the younger generation, and I'll start, me and Barry will make a few bit of barrels in the cellar. You know? What do you say, Barry?
I was thinking more about along the line of distilling brandy.
Here we go. So what happened? I just showed you that the fermentation cellar is. The barrel cellar was always here under the stoop. And how did you get the wine from that tanks to the barrel cellar? So we took pipes and we pumped the wine. If you look here, there's a hole in the wall. So we pumped the wine physically through that hole in the wall into the barrel cellar, which is quite unique. I don't think anybody does that. So here's where the whole journey started with making. We started with 10 barrels here in 2002, and then in 2003 it was 20. Then it became 30 barrels. Then we went to the garages and we put in cooling there, where I just showed you, and we made a total of, I think, about 100 barrels at the end of the day. And then we built the new cellar. Well, I'll show you now where the barrel cellar is now at the moment, which is now obviously we can store there 200 barrels, and we've got a few amphoras there as well. But here's the fountain. This is all spring water, natural spring water. And I mean, this is very few people has got this on a farm, which is, we are just blessed. My father was a very wise man, because it basically was just bush when he came here. The whole journey on the video I showed, there was nothing. So basically nothing. There was a few old pear orchards, and then there was plums and so on, which he farmed. But he saw this fountain and he said, shit, no, he wants to buy this land. And he did it from a guy called Jumbo van der Reenen. He was an Englishman, and like I said, this was his homestead and the last farm he sold since where he took the Zevenvier internal. This is also why I call it Rainbow's End. So Rainbow's End was the name when my father bought the farm in 1978. Because this guy was a big English guy, and he said he wants to call it Rainbow's End because it's the end of the valley. You'll see, without any bullshit, there's a lot of rainbows ending here. You'll see on our Instagram posts, and today we might see a rainbow, but if you've got cloudy days, you see so many rainbows there ending here and in the tasting room. So he called it rainbows, and then he felt there was some pot of gold here, which we're still searching for. But I mean, this is, and we said we're going to take that name, keep it like that. It made sense to us, and then this is how we also took that name as our trademark for our labels, and that's how, and also our brand name. So we've built this brand based on the name Rainbows End. But here's the spring. It originates about where all these green there was a big fire, so this is newly green foliage that came out, but where the foliage stops there, where that black burned out wood is, that's basically where the fountain comes out of the ground, and it gravitates there, and from that part, it gravitates down to that big dam where I showed you where the lining is. So it all gravitates down there, and this is our irrigation water as well as our cooling system. So we take the water from here to that cellar, so we use it as our cooling system, not just the irrigation, which is a very unique system. I think not very few people does that. I'll show you this little barrel cellar. Let's go in here.
I remember
I
this.
cannot believe there's no more barrels in here, but this was a sentimental thing for me. So you'll see there's a hole in the wall. So this used to be our barrels. We could store 34 barrels. And yeah, this is where the whole journey. This is a very sentimental thing. So this is where the whole winemaking journey for me started. And yeah, now it became a little bit impractical because you had to take the barrels in and out. But still the conditions here was amazing. I mean, you've got nice high humidity and all that. So yeah, this was the original little barrel cellar. Here we're entering the barrel cellar. My God, I love the smell in here. Look at all these barrels, just been filled up yesterday. And they're going malolactic fermentation now. There's the heater. So we keep the temperature for malolactic fermentation to 20 degrees Celsius. Obviously we're going to put the temperature down when the wine went through malolactic, which will probably be 2 weeks from now. And then we put the cooler on, and we immediately bring the cellar down to 16, 17 degrees Celsius. Look at this old traditional little barrel cellar. You could have been in France. And look at this. Here's the hole in the wall. Old man Jacques Milan drilled the hole in here. We put a pipe in here, and this is where we put the pipe through. I communicate with my brother from here with radios. He's at the other side at the tanks, and we communicate as we pump the wine through and filling up the barrels. All French oak. Boots Tradition Medium Toast, one of my favorite barrels. Alright guys, here we are in this old family house where we grew up. Like I said, I was one of the 4 kids. I was lucky, and but what was so amazing is we used this house in the beginning days because we couldn't afford a tasting room. We're going to end off the whole video and the whole journey in the tasting room. We're going to go through all the wines, but I used to do all the tastings right here when I'm sitting here. So the small little groups of a maximum of 10 people, which they all by appointment came, but sometimes it was so funny then on a Sunday afternoon, being a bachelor for so long, then somebody knocks on your door and said, no, he drove up here, he wants to, where's this Rainbows and Wine? I said, no, this is where it is. And then I took a few bottles out, and we always helped the people. But yeah, so this place was used as our tasting room from the first release of wine in 2000, and the 2 vintage in 2003, and it went on up till basically COVID. That's how that works. So when COVID hit, there was two reasons that we felt we just couldn't manage it anymore 7 days a week. My wife also, she said it was a bit, it got tricky with the COVID thing, and then our farm started to be sustainable, and we made a little bit of money, and we thought we're going to build this tasting room, so the new one. But this was a very the journey that was basically from 2003 up till COVID that year. I think what was that, 2019. And then in the COVID, we built the tasting room ourselves with my father. He had a builder from up in the West Coast, being an engineer. That was his very last project he did. And we decided we're going to do it on the other side of the farm, which we're going to go to later on. But yeah, this is the old family home. And this was like when my father bought this place in 1978, he told me it basically looked like this. But yeah, this is where we did all the tastings. Here we are in this Cabernet Franc block, clone 214, the Loire. It's the Loire French clone Cabernet Franc. My father planted this in 2001, east-west direction, because you can do that with the slope assisting that. We've got our cover crop in between the rows, but we don't need to spray. We don't spray any weed killer to keep it more natural, to keep the soil getting closer to organic status. Although it's not possible in this area to go totally organic. And here we're doing the pruning now. So basically, they're cutting the shoots. We call it in Afrikaans skoon en stomsny. So basically, you want spacings between each bearer. So this shoot will carry. They cut it back to 2 buds, 1, 2, and there will be 2 shoots coming out, and then they'll put it in between the 3-wire ferrule system, and they'll top it at the top, and then you want 1 bunch on each shoot, and that's your first process of thinning the grapes. And then when you're on that stage, then we're waiting for veraison, when the grapes color up. And when the grapes color up, then we'll make another thinning of the grapes where we will make all the bunches loose. Then you've got basically a balanced crop. But this is old vines. This is planted 2001. I love these ones very, very much. Johanna, that side. I think Johanna, we trellised these vines originally. So that lady there on the left was working still when I was still in the vineyards before my brother came and took over the farming. This man is one of the most important men in Rainbow's End. His name is Mr. Hendrik. Hendrik, when did you start? You remember the year? I cannot remember now. You started with my brother Francois. 2014.
Yes.
He takes care of the people, he brings them in. He and Francois got a relationship. He lives with the vines. There's nothing you can tell this man about vines. And look at you can show this man's hand. He's a man that's been in a vineyard for many years. You grew up in vineyards, eh?
Yes.
Where did you grow up?
In the Banhoek Valley in Worcester.
In the Banhoek Valley in Worcester you grew up, and then you spent most of his time, I think, in Paul.
Yes. Only 30 years.
40 years, and this is our right hand. This is Francois' right hand man in the vineyard. I'll look for my man in the cellar, but I can't find him. He's not in the vineyard now at the moment, but maybe we'll find him when we go down to the cellar. But yeah, interesting. This clone 214 brings a very freshness to the wine. It gives that. Because it originated in France, and that's the first Cabernet Franc vines was planted in France in the Loire Valley, like I said, and that clone brings sort of a vegetal character to the wine, but I make it in a style that's not so vegetal, because people either love that character or they hate it. I believe too much grassy greenness in a wine, nobody really likes it, unless you're really into that Cab Franc thing. And I do like the Loire Cab Francs, but some people find it a bit too green, too grassy, too acidic. So we make it in a style here, and our terroir allows it, and our climate, that is a little bit more in a riper style. So you get a lot of black fruits, graphite character in this specific clone, with a slight undertone of a little bit of tomato leaf. You can identify characters like sage, thyme, cinnamon. But this clone gives the, I would say, expresses Cab Franc the best as the varietal. A lot of people don't know that Cabernet Franc. I mean, everyone everyone in the world knows Cabernet Sauvignon. I mean, that's the mother of the border varieties. But I don't think a lot of people know that Cabernet Franc is actually the building block for Cabernet Sauvignon. So in my opinion, Cabernet Franc is the mother varietal of all varietals, and it's never been really used except for in the Loire Valley as a single varietal. I started making wine in 2005 of a straight Cab Franc. At that time there was Raats, High Constantia, Warwick. There wasn't much else. And like I said, this is the building block of Cabernet Sauvignon. Of course, the cross between Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc gives you Cabernet Sauvignon. So, in my opinion, that's the mother varietal, Cab Franc. So, we've got the 214 block here. When you go down this slope, the board there, just underneath that board, where that green tank is, there is the clone 1, which is also Cabernet Franc. That clone gives you black fruits. And I like to mix these two blocks up to make my family standard Cab Franc. Of course, you got that typical Loire Cab Franc varietal, as I said, the characters that come out, as I just said, and then you blend it with about 40% of the South African clone, which I don't think that's used a lot around the world. I think it's only in South Africa, but it's the old Warwick made the Cab Franc out of the clone 1. But the clone 1 gives a very black linear fruit, so you got that deep black fruits, black cherry, combined with the freshness of the Loire, and for me that gives a beautiful mix of Cab Franc and a great expression. So I've blended these two blocks together since 2007. 2005 and 6 I made only one Cab Franc, which was these two blocks plus this block here, which is the 312 Bordeaux clone. So and that gives a red fruit character, a totally not typical Cab Franc. And then I said in 2000, let's split the styles from each other and keep that as a single vineyard. So it's 0.8 hectare, and that's now going into our, well, not now, from 2007 this was our Cabernet Franc limited release with the red fruit character of pomegranate that you typically get from that. And this is out of the Bordeaux area. But when we planted it in 2001 and we made it in the single barrels in 2005, I saw, shit, this is so unique. It doesn't taste like Cab Franc. It could be Cabernet Sauvignon. And then I decided in 2007, let's split the styles into two styles. And then the mission for me was that not just to make it an identified single vineyard, but also I blindfolded a lot of people to taste this wine. Because people said, I don't like Cab Franc, it's too green grasses, and I don't want to try this. And then I blindfolded them to taste this wine, and they all tell me, this is a beautiful Cabernet Sauvignon. And I said, can I show them? This is Cab Franc. It's a Bordeaux clone limit 312, and this is Cab Franc, and I couldn't believe it. Then I got them going to the more typical Cab Francs, and this is how I got thousands of people starting drinking Cab Franc, and this is how our whole brand and the whole Rainbow's End on the wine side. I believe the Cabernet Franc varietal was the building blocks for people to get Rainbow's then get to know the name Rainbow's End. And at the beginning days it was only a 4x4 route coming up here. We're going to go up to the top now, so it was difficult to get here. So Cabernet Franc is a beloved varietal for us. It's extremely important for Rainbow's End, these Cabernet Franc vines. Guys, here we are. We're standing here in the middle of our Merlot block. So we're here sitting at about 480 above sea level, and then the Merlot goes right to the top here, going up to 600 meters above sea level. at the backside of the Jonkershoek Mountain. You'll see the stone fraction is quite higher here. So we take the stones and when you prepare the soil, when you start planting, we put all the rocks we put in the planting rows. That keeps the soil nice and cool, keep the weeds out. So here we're looking at the Merlot. This is the vine that is not pruned yet. So we call this, in Afrikaans, we call it borselkopsnij. And then they go out and they will, as I showed on the previous Cabernet Franc vineyard, this is the Merlot. So the Merlot we always prune at the end of the season, of the pruning season. Because when bud break starts middle September, end of September, the first bud break is on your Merlot. So we wanna, the later you prune, you postpone the bud break. So and the reason for that is we want to postpone the bud break and prune this block, the Merlot blocks last, that you get the shoot growth a little bit later in the season. The reason for that is because in September, October, you still get quite a bit of rain. So your risk on mildew is quite high. So you want to, when the shoot growth develops and the bunches develop, you want to take it out of that, not into that in September. We want to take it out and postpone it, that you don't get the risk of mildew, or less risk of mildew. So then, as I explained, then what we'll do here is we'll make the spacings, and you would cut, for instance, that you'll cut there, and you'll cut to 2 buds, that you'll cut there, and you'll cut to 2 buds here, that you'll cut. You should take that actually totally out, that your spacings is about 15 centimeters for enough sunlight to get fertility in your vines. So that should be taken out there, and here you'll cut that off, go there, and you would hope to get new growth out of here, that you don't build up, we call it kersen, that you don't get too much build up wood there. But this is the starting, this is the vines are all dormant now, this is starting, the bud break will start here in middle September. So this is the pruning season. But what's nice here, I think this is a beautiful shot of the farm. So you'll see where we drove the road up, there's the gate there, of the Rainbows Inn gate. On the left hand side you'll get the Chinese poplars, which is our boundary to our neighbor's fruit farm. And then at the lower lying level of the farm, that is the flower part. And then your vines, we want to plant it higher up on the mountain. So higher lying slopes and the higher altitude, we use the farm for the vineyards, because your top quality comes out of the slopes here. So you'll see the flowers at the bottom, and then your vineyards going up. Just other side of that track, there's a very old block of Cabernet Sauvignon, which is planted 2001, and then where the tractor now drives, he's taking water to the people there. That's a newly planted Cabernet Sauvignon block, which I made the first wine there of it this year. Absolutely beautiful. So you need to, you can't just sit on your vines. If the vines, there's a disease in South Africa sometimes, if your vines has got infected Rowley virus, you need to take it out. You need to renew your vines, because you want also a combination of a bit of younger vineyard fruit or grapes combined with the older vineyard, because the younger vineyard fruit gives a lot more fruit intensity, but the older vineyard gives more the structure in the backbone. So you need to always renew your vineyards. And that's, if you look like that, that's exactly north. If you go far at the far dense there, you get Paul, and right at the end there is Wellington. Around this mountain, the Groot Drakensberg, you get Franschhoek. That's the very famous Simonsberg mountain. And around the corner here you get Stellenbosch. The back is the Jonkershoek mountain. And this whole area basically you're seeing here is called Banhoek. I explained that to you, but what we're proud of it is that we registered this ward. So our origin of the wine is Stellenbosch, which everyone that knows South African wine knows that Stellenbosch are the most famous region for especially Cabernet Sauvignon, but also a lot of other varietals. So origin is Stellenbosch, but then within an origin they classify wards. So you get in the Cape, for instance, or in Stellenbosch you get a Simonsberg ward, and we said we want to make this more terroir specific, area specific, and classify this area as a ward, and we said let's call it Banhoek, because that's where the name comes from. And we did that with the authorities at the Wine and Spirits Board, with a guy called Davey Bailey, who was quite a famous guy in the wine industry, and that we did in 2005. So now there's a few farms in this Banhoek Valley. With the names of Dalle, the names of Delima, Partony, Camberley, Zorfleet, Capensis, Oldenburg, and Rainbow's End, and Vierberg at the bottom are all in this Banhoek ward. And it's so nice to say that all these guys have started to focus on seriously making good wines. This area is very popular for Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay. That's the most popular varietals. So our farm is a bit unique, where the Merlot and Cabernet Franc for me is just as important as the Cabernet Sauvignon. Definitely, even more maybe. But yeah, the area is very renowned for your Chardonnays and Cabernet. And all the farms I just mentioned makes top quality wine. So this is a very good winemaking area. Yeah, and then you'll see this, the buildings down there. At the other side of that windbreak, there's the dam where the water gravitated around the corner. There's the house with the fountains that gravitates down to the dam. That buildings there is the cellar and the bottle store. We can quickly pop into the barrel cellar and the bottle store to show how we mature the wines. And then at the far end there with the umbrellas on that southern eastern facing Syrah block, that's our tasting room we built in COVID. So yeah, we are a blessed little people to be able to work here. Here we are in the new barrel cellar. So we built this building about 3 years ago. And we're now maturing all our wines in here. Here we're having, there's 173 barrels you're seeing here, and going around the corner, and then I've got 2 amphora clay Italian eggs or containers. This is just my little bit of machinery I've got in here. This is the barrel washer. So it's got a therm there, so it warms the water to about, you can warm it between 60 and 80 degrees Celsius, that you wash your barrels for every cycle when you empty it. And the barrel goes on top of here, and it's a nozzle that turns and you clean your barrel. But these babies here are really the most important thing, really, for me, still in winemaking. There's a lot of guys now trying new things, or that, you know, over the years they tried tanks with staves, or old barrels with staves, or trying American oak, or trying Hungarian oak. There's only one oak that works, and I've tried everything, and that's French oak, unfortunately, because it's extremely expensive. You're paying now over €1,000 per barrel, so you're paying about 23,000 rand in per barrel, and the barrel is a 2 to 5 liter container that you can get 300 bottles out. So if you work your numbers out, your biggest cost on making a bottle of wine is your wood component. But there's no way to do it else. So I will rather, you know, in the fermentation process, you can still work with maybe less expensive equipment. But if you look in your maturation, because this is where the wine is doing its thing, where it sits about, it comes in April after the fermentation process, and we take it out in May. So it's got about a 13-month maturation cycle. And then the family reserve, the Bordeaux blend, which we're gonna taste at the tasting room, which is a selection of the best 12 barrels in here. That's matured for 2 years in the French oak. So the barrels I like, I really do like the Franche-Ferré tight grain medium toast. Very slow extraction of oak, very gentle on it, and I also do like a lot the Boots medium toast tradition. And Taranzo I feel is also quite a good barrel. The other barrels I use is Ratu and Vicard. But what is this badge saying? If you look here, for instance, this is a second full Franche-Ferré medium toast tight grain barrel. It's Merlot 12/192. 12 is the clone. So in other words, when we went up to the mountain, where we took the footage of all those Merlot blocks, within those blocks on the boards, the blocks are planted according to a specific clone. So this is block 10A and 10B, and the one block was a clone 12, which is an Italian clone. The other block is a 192, also Italian clone. So that's the one component, for instance, on the Merlot, and that just says it's a second fill in the used this year. So this is the second time this barrel is used. We can use the barrels up to 6 times. Every year I buy, out of the 170 to 80 barrels I make, I buy 20% new oak. So your mix, I like a mix on most varietals. So for instance, Merlot, you need less new oak. Cabernet Sauvignon, you need more new oak. Shiraz, Syrah, you need less new oak. Cab Franc, you need quite a bit of new oak. So I'm working out about 20% new oak. So a very expensive exercise. So in my opinion, the wine is made in the vineyard and your site and terroir, and that's, if you don't have that, if you don't have the grapes, you can't do anything. The winemaking is trial and error, and over the years there is a few tricks in it. It's, for instance, what style of wine you want to make. Do you want to do open tank fermentation? Do you want to post macerate or not? There's a few tricks. So I like to cold soak, open tank fermentation, and post macerating. We're leaving the wine on the skin for a long period. I learned that in France, and that's the style of wine I like to make, and that's the style of wine because we are so small. I started selling the wine myself. That's how I've always done it up till now, except with the tasting room that's now also selling wine. But from 2005, when my brother came into the business, I went in my bakkie and I first started going from restaurant to restaurant in the Cape area, all the top places, and then we went to Gauteng and Mpumalanga, and then I started selling the wine in South Africa. So so the selling part is also done by ourselves, so that keeps the thing nice and small. But then, if I wanted to show you here, so here you've got the Cabernet Sauvignon, which is, for instance, the Clone 163, which is that old block, which is in a boots barrel. We keep the temperature of the cellar, you'll see there on that side, to 16 degrees Celsius. So you want to keep the temperature consistent. In other words, rather have a cellar that's sitting at 18 degrees Celsius consistent where you really want it at 16. That's a better scenario than having a cellar that's varying between 16 and 20. So you want a consistent temperature, and we've got that with the cooling system in there for that. Then after the post-macerating process, then we do the pressing where Barry just took a photo of the new modern press that we got, but it's still the original Boeger basket press. So after that pressing of that wine, the free-run wine and the pressed wine goes together, and that goes into the barrel, and then the secondary fermentation, the alcoholic fermentation, is at the other side of the cellar. This is the malolactic fermentation takes place in here, where malic acid gets transferred into lactic acid with the help of inoculation of bacteria. I do like inoculating bacteria to control that process, that you can because in malolactic you want the temperature of your cellar to about 20, and you don't want half of your cellar through malolactic, the other half not. Then you're going to battle to get the other through off. So I like to end my malolactic that everything is ending more or less the same time, and then bring down the temperature of the cellar to 16 where it's maturing at optimum temperatures. So what's now, we're sitting in the beginning of August, so the wine came in here in end of the fermentation cycle, and after pressing it came in here end of April, went through malolactic fermentation basically in May, so it takes about a 4-week period. Then when it's through, you test your malic, and if it's under 0.2 grams a liter, then it's through. Then I would rack out the wine. So the wine I will rack out with that machine I showed you there, and I'll clean out the barrel with the warm washer, and I'll take out all the lees, because you want the purity of the fruit. You want to express the ultimate of that grape, and the ultimate of the grape is the least intervention. So you don't want to sit with your malolactic lees lying at the bottom. Some people believe on it, like Chardonnay. People want to leave it on the lees, but that's a 6 months process. But if it's lying here for a year, even 2 years on the family reserve, we take out the malolactic lees, clean it out, put it back, and you've got the purity of the wine. And now it sits here. The nice part is happening now where we do tastings, and at the end of the day, end of December, I would decide, okay, Cabernet Sauvignon, I've got 163 clone, I've got a 169 clone. I know the 169, for instance, which is the new young vineyard block at the top there, that will give you the very black currant cassis. And then the 163, the older vineyard, this is a German clone, gives you more the structure, the dark fruit. So it's all the science, but it's also art to combine the ultimate combinations. You want fruit components with structure components, for instance, in your Cabernet Sauvignon. It's also good that you see the hose line there. We wet every week. We wet the barrels because you do lose about 5% of your holder. If you're 2 to 5 barrel holder, with a 12-month period, you lose 5% of the wine. So this 170 barrels will, through a 12 months maturation cycle, you'll lose at least 2 barrels, even 3 barrels. But the wetter you keep and the more moist you keep it, the less you lose through evaporation. So yeah, this is what happens with in the barrels. If you go around here, if you look here, for instance, so everything in here is 2025 wines. So this is came in except for those 12 barrels, which is the family reserve. So the family reserve 2025, I will select through a long tasting procedure what is the 12 I want. So that's still going to happen. That's going to happen end of November, beginning December for the 2025 vintage. But the 24 year is. So this blend was made up in December last year. So this is now going through its second year in maturation. And this selection was 12 barrels, which was 4 barrels of Cabernet Franc, 3 barrels of Merlot, 3 barrels of Cabernet Sauvignon, and then 1 barrel Petit Verdot, 1 barrel Malbec. That was the family 2024. So I play around with those 5 varietals of the family reserve. And then the Cabernet Franc, the variety I love so much, there's the clone 1 and 214. As I explained to you, those 2 blocks at the end of the day I bring back together, but those barrels, there was already a blend of that. But then we've got the straight 214 Cabernet Franc, and the straight 214 will be blended with the clone 1, which is in the corner there. And then the Cabernet Franc 312, for instance, is the one, the Bordeaux clone, on the right hand side, and this is kept separately. I will also take these, it's about 14 barrels, and that goes into limited release, and this Cabernet Franc I will take out of the barrel after also end of November, and then I'll blend it up in a tank and put it back into the barrels. That there's no clone blending, but there is barrel blending. So in other words, you bring in your new barrels with your second fill, with your third fill, so that the different wood components can also combine together, and then you put it back into its units. And then before bottling, I take it out about 3 weeks before bottling, then the wood components blend together again. So I think that's good that you get the clones together. Limited is no clones blending, but in the other, the Cab Franc there is, but also the wood blending of the different, new second, third, fourth full blendings that you want to combine those things as quick as possible together before the bottling. And it's bottled without filtering, keeping it as natural as possible. If your wine is healthy, the cellar must be clean, your equipment must be clean. If your wine is healthy, your bacterial status is good, you don't have any Brettanomyces in your cellar, there's absolutely nothing here, of course. And if your VA is low, your volatile acidity, and you've got quite a low pH, you can get away with minimum intervention through filtration and filtering of wines. So I think that's important of a small scale farm, that if you go to big co-ops or big massive cellars, they have to go through 100 tons a day. We go through 65 tons through the whole season. So, in the heat, they'll bring in the grapes. If you bring in the grapes cool, all those factors attribute to getting a more sound bacterial status of the wine with a low VA, and also, of course, the low pH is through the viticulture and the soil that contributes to low pHs, which you can also mature your wine. Oh, this is they call that amphora. If you guys know wine, you probably know they always use it in Chardonnays, Chenin Blancs, more the white wine component, and they use it on the reds. They would go to more the lighter style reds like Cinsault, Grenache. They'll use these amphora eggs. So I'm doing an experiment here where I've got a 214 clone 1, I've got clone 214 straight into this barrel, or in this amphora, and I've got a combination of the 1 and 214 into this amphora. And I've what they say this clay eggs do is that they say that there's a more earthy, mineralic character that it contributes to the wine. So, in my opinion, on a Bordeaux red, we make full, rich, big wines generally. In my opinion, you cannot just have that on our style of wines, but we will now see. And if this component brings another dimension into the wine, which is in the that's blended with the barrels, obviously I'll see if it makes it better. If it doesn't make it better, myself and Barry need to, make a plan and drink it out ourselves. But I think that's hopefully not going to be the case. But that's going to be interesting. That what I feel an earthy, mineralic, fresh character can contribute in a positive way to the Cab Franc, as long as it's in a small percentage. That's my feeling. But we're gonna blend it and make trials and see how it comes out. I'm very excited about this. The other advantage here is, of course, the disadvantage is very difficult to move around with a forklift. So there you can just move it around. It's practically, it takes a lot of space. So if you limit it in space, it's a negative. If it falls, it's gone. So if a barrel falls, you say, okay, if this thing falls, it will break and it's gone. But if it doesn't break, they say you can use this thing forever. So where a barrel you can use 6 times, you can use this thing basically forever. They say if you don't break it. And it's an extremely expensive product, but I mean, if on the long run, it's then also making economically sense. Obviously, that would be an extra bonus. But we'll see if that makes the wine better. I think I've got a feeling it's going to make it better. And then my older barrels, you'll see here, I like to use that on the Syrah. Because Syrah, I've got a few new barrels in here, but not many. Syrah, don't want too much new oak. You don't want to overpower it all. I know the Swartland guys, they use very old barrels, but I also believe in relatively older barrels like this. Is mostly 4-4 barrels. So that's the older. This is the Syrah section. So yeah, here we go. This is the barrel cellar. Oh, here is the tasting room. And here's the family crest, where we're proud of. It's just actually the Milan family crest that we just put in recently. So let's go into the tasting room. Let's taste some wine. Yeah, so we've got a little wall here, which is always interesting. Basically, what I've told you. There we grew up as little kids. My mother. Fortunately, we didn't inherit her genetics. She was a very beautiful lady. And there's the old press. Here's my cellar hand, where we won 6 out of 8 times the Cab Franc Challenge. That's my brother. Here's the old cellar with open tank fermenters, with the cooling through the water. Only time ever in the history of Rainbow's End. 2003, I was living at the top there of the main house, and I heard my father screaming at me, and I said, "What the hell now?" And the whole place was white. So remember, that was the end of August. It was the only time, and there's the little barrel cellar where you used to mature the barrels, but it went too small. That was the first few barrels we made in that old cellar. Oh, so this is, let's go in and taste some wines. Here's some awards. I don't really believe in awards, but if you got something, you put it on. There's got a 5-star pattern on Cab Franc Limited Release and Family Reserve, and we won the Cab Franc Challenge 6 out of the 8 times. There's 6 winners, and we were one of them. 6 out of the 8 times the competition started, which I think is important because it's a blind tasting thing, and that shows consistency. And I think that goes back to the estate thing, that you're working with the same blocks and you get consistent quality. So I think that's You know, competition is a lot of luck, but it shows you blind taste and consistency. So yeah, let's go into the tasting. This is a normal Friday afternoon. I'm gonna have my 30-year reunion here in the mall. So let's sit down. I think Barry, let's sit down on that table there, and we're gonna organize some wines there.
Good heavens. I don't know what to say. I'm getting older now, you know, and my memory actually fades a bit, but it's the short-term memory isn't what it should be. But fortunately, I think I think it's going to be best to say a few words of the old days, because that now is more fresh in my memory. I'm so grateful for this wonderful farm and the fact that we've now that the boys are making wine and all the wonderful things, and the fact that the farm is here. My dear wife Ingrid is not here with me anymore. We lost her, didn't lose her, but she passed away 4.5 years ago. And if it wasn't for her, and then we wouldn't have been here today. Now that I think of it, I think I must now quickly tell you the story. I was a civil engineer, consulting practice, but I always had this dream, because when I finished my qualifications, I used to do a lot of survey work in vineyards and stuff, and also on farms where development had to take place. And good heavens, there I just had this wonderful dream, and I remember my uncle had a farm, but not here, and I just dreamt of having a farm somewhere, or just have 2 or 3 vines, so that I can, with my wife and I, can bring up the children, at least not on pavements all the time, but with their feet in the soil. Now, what happened is every weekend I was looking for something, you know, and there was no money, and I had no money, but I had this desire and this, you know, this absolute vision. And then after a while, I went to every Sunday or whatever Saturday, I would lie down, drive around, and my wife we had 2 children, and she was pregnant with a 3rd. And then I came across this property just by coincidence, and it was just a bush, and it was wild, and the road was full of potholes and whatever. And I came here to a guy called old Jumbo. He was a long, tall man, a lovely man with long legs. And I said to Jumbo, you know, this place is unbelievable, man. You know, within 6 months, this place, you won't know it. I'm so keen, you know, and I think it's important that one must. How did I say? You know, if you open a beer, it must bubble. I said, if you open me, Baba, you won't be able to control me. So he then said to me, well, tell me a bit more, and I told him a bit more, and he said no, but the farm wasn't on the market, and he then said, well, he'll consider it. But I said, well, you know, can I bring my wife along? Absolutely. He said, you can do that. So I then went home back with my little DKW, the 2-stroke engine, with the 2-stroke engine, and I went back to the house in Belleville. And there I found my wife, you know, bathing the children, and which she always did herself, and pregnant with the 3rd. And I said to her, my poppy, you must come. And she said, not again. I said, please, man, please, just come. This is unbelievable. I want to go and show you. She said, but you've got no money. How can you do that? Nevertheless, I got her into the DKW with the pregnant and with the 2 other children in the car. We've got 4 children. My memory is going a bit now. I'm just trying to think their names. Marika, the daughter, and then it was the son, Henri Jacques Drux, his nickname, but nevertheless, and then of course the 2 boys that are farming down the farm, which I'm so grateful for. It's just a blessing. But let me come back to my dear wife. So we're now in the car, we're coming up this way, going through the bush. Good grace, and the stomach is bumping up and down, you know. She's I'm just hoping that she won't go into labor, but there was quite a few months still ahead. So in any event, I then came through here, and we walked into the front door of this old house, and it's a big house, you know, and the lounge is as big. And she said, "But to me, but Jackie, you know, what are we going to put in this house? This looks like the Presbyterian Church Hall. This is just impossible." So I said, "Listen, honey bun, all I'm telling you, there's a lot of space to put something into. So it'll all happen, and give me just 6 months, you won't know it." She says, "But you know, it's impossible. You've got your practice in Bellville. Look at the road. The children will have to go to school. Yeah, there's one coming, and you know, it's just impossible." And then obviously, I didn't lose my temper. But you know, I then just said, "Listen, okay, if that it is, let's go home." So we got into the car, we went back, and we got to Bellville into the little house. And as we walked up the steps, and unlocked the front door of this little house, and she stopped and she said to me, "Jacques, now, if you really want to go, I'll go. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have been here." And then I tried to do my best. Build it up to a point. I know how to go to the bank. I'm very good in that, to go and you know, take up a loan out there. In fact, that's my forte. And so I was in deep debt, and the boys grew older, and Anton was in after varsity. He then went and worked in Bordeaux and Saint-Emilion with the Frenchman, and he made wine there. And I built the dam, busy building the dam. And Francois was at school still. And we started planting our own vines. First vine, yeah, and it was wonderful. So I then said but let's not go into that story, how Francois and Anton got together. But they're here now, and I'm so grateful, because if it wasn't for these two boys, there's just no way that this thing can operate. It's just impossible. And now we've got the wonderful tasting room. My wife has never actually experienced it, and we're just grateful. And I'm so grateful, because they are top boys. They're not actually absolutely. Anton is more like me, you know. Anton is fairly artistic. I'm not. But Anton's got my sort of personality, I think, in a way, you know, a little bit up and down, not the easiest guy to get on with. But then his brother Francois is like my old man, you know. He was an absolute gem, you know. And he's calm and he's whatever, so it works out very well. And he's the practical guy, you know. If there's a short, or there's a plug, or there's a toilet cistern broken, or what the hell ever, Francois will see to that, you know. But I mean, Anton, if we can't sell the wine, and then obviously it can't work. So I can just be grateful for him and for his brother and for Ingrid, that if it wasn't for her, and I can't be grateful enough. Thank you for listening to my old stories. There's plenty more, frogs in the pipes and all sorts of stuff, but we'll speak again or talk again. Thank you.
All right, guys, here we are. What a privilege to sit in my old man's seat. Lovely stories that we just heard of him. We're starting off here with what we call the Rainbow's End Cabernet Franc Blanc de Noir. Look at the color. So Barry, let's pour a glass. So interesting of this product is, if you go look at that side there was a lower lying vineyard that we never could properly, look at the color here, but we never could properly get ripe for the Cabernet Franc, you know, the red. So I told my brother in the beginning of the 2021 vintage that we either need to take this vineyard block out because we couldn't get phenolical ripeness, or we have to make another plan. And I felt, let's go and let's make a Cab Franc rosé out of this. And I just felt like, you know, if it doesn't get properly ripe, maybe a bit of that greenish character could work in a rosé. So So we did it, and basically the concept is I pick about a month before you pick the regular Cabernet Franc for the red. It's also a clone 312, which is the Bordeaux clone. So this Bordeaux clone wasn't the block that you saw at the top of the mountain. This is the block that sits in a bowl in a lower lying part of the farm. So that's the reason why it just couldn't get it properly ripe enough to get to the quality of the. We couldn't get the quality of the Cab Franc style for the limited release. So basically, the concept, pick it a month earlier. It goes directly. It gets destemmed and then crushed, and the whole grapes and crushings goes into a press. We press it very, very lightly, so it's pressed to about 0.5 of a bar. So we get here about 600 liters a ton out of this product, where you normally in a rosé you can get to up to 750 liters a ton. So it's pressed very lightly, and I felt, make it light, make it Provence style. This is what people want. People don't want, that red, pink style of character. So we bottled it. The tasting room was opened up in August 2022. We launched it in the tasting room. I launched it into a lot of my restaurant clients, and it was a huge success. And it's such a unique product, because on Cab Franc Rosé there's only a few others. And then the story got more interesting. The story got more interesting because that 22 was a Cab Franc Rosé, and in 2023, this is why it's called Cabernet Franc Blanc de Noir. So why did it happen? It happened because the Wine and Spirits Board, where you get the certification seal, told me you can't. They didn't want to allow me to certify it as a rosé. And I told them, but look here, the 22's color is like this. This is the 23's color. It's exactly the same. And I told them I was lucky. So I was obviously quite furious, because I mean that just shows the process. But then they said I can certify that as a Blanc de Noir. So I did that in 2023, and I was a bit worried, because I had a lot of top listings and top restaurants here in the Cape, especially in Cape Town area, and I felt, look, it's going to mess the wine list around. But it turned out that it worked out very well, actually, in our favor a little bit, because now you've got such a focused Cabernet Franc grape, but made in a Blanc de Noir style. So we also have another rosé, the more drinking rosé, everyday drinking rosé. That's now it specializes, or it differentiates it from that other rosé. So it worked out very well. So this rosé, I would describe, it's very dry. It's 1 gram a liter sugar, but it doesn't taste so dry. It's quite a low acidity, because it's got an acidity of 5.5 gram a liter, where your norm would be 6 grams a liter. Taste profile, very juicy, green apricots, grapefruit, yellow apple, bit of yellow pear, that type of character. So the Cab Franc lends it out very, very nicely to this Blanc de Noir, which wasn't really a plan with that vineyard block planted. So a product that's become very important to us. We can't keep up and can't make enough of this. So yeah, lovely to drink. And our family, we always make jokes, me and my wife. I got married in quite a late age, but she tells me, because my wife only drinks red, and obviously she only drinks our own wine, because we're so lucky to have our own wine, and then she's glass is finished and my bottle is finished, and she said, but I drinks really, really well. So she calls us the alcoholist one, which means the alcoholic one. So be careful for this little product. Okay, so that's the Cab Franc Blanc de Noir. Now we're going to move on to our reds, which is our focus, of course. After this long journey on the farm, let's pour the 2022 Merlot, a vintage I really enjoy. So this is those vineyards at the top where we and Barry took some footage there and explained the elevation. It is 4 vineyard blocks. So 2 vineyard blocks is the 348, 346 clone, which is the French clones. That gives more your plum, mulberry sort of character. And then the 12 and 192 clone, which I showed you in the barrel, so I think I showed you on the barrel where I put the label on. That's the Italian clone. So the Italian clones brings a black fruit sensation, a bit more structure, a bit more depth in the Merlot, where the French clones gives that lovely mulberry plum fruit character. So the combination is great. Merlot is always the black sheep child. It's a little bit like Pinot Noir in South Africa. You don't get great Merlots because the problem is our climate is hot. So I think our farm is blessed with that high elevation, and it's long ripening periods. And when I worked in France, I saw that Merlot. When I had a few tastings there in the Pomerol and Saint-Emilion, I thought, Jesus, we have got no clue what proper Merlot tastes like. Because our Merlot is classified as elegant, it's easy to drink, it's nonsense. Merlot should be like a Bordeaux variety, should be like a Cabernet or a Cab Franc, softer tannin, but it has to be rich and full and bold, and that's the style that we make. And now after a lot of years, South Africa, Merlot is getting better and better. And those that are good are very, very good. But yeah, you need the right terroir. You can't make Merlot in ridiculously hot areas. So you would get a few selective areas in cooler spots where we are in Elgin. There's a few good Merlots. So let's taste. Okay, so I'm gonna pour it in here. Let's see the color. So I'm spilling. So excited, yeah. So you see the color is it's dark, it's rich. It's normally Merlots. I mean, people tell me, yeah, it's an elegant varietal. You can make it in an elegant style, but you know, those Merlots has got its place. But it's a little bit sometimes like Pinot Noir. There's so much oak in it, but there's no flavor and richness in the wine. So I feel you got that depth, that layers of flavor. And it's got mouth contact, and I think the oak regime of 18 to 20% doesn't overpower. So you're tasting the grapes here. So let's taste. Look, it's also I make this style of wine as a 22, 3 years old. I will happily drink this, but it's also a wine that you can keep for 10, 15 years easily. So it's got that chemical analysis and a regime for that. But I like a wine that you can drink. Now, of course, why do you want to buy a bottle of wine? For God's sake, you got people that can mature it and want to mature it in the private cellars, but you also have people that don't have that opportunity and they want to drink the wine when they buy the wine. So you cannot sell a bottle of wine to anybody that you can't drink. So stylistically, I make a wine that you can enjoy now and drink it, and you'll have a more of a fruit sensation, more juicy sensation. If you mature it, you reward it with more old school characters, of more earthy characters, and the wine becomes even softer. But the wines are definitely soft enough. I think it's soft enough. What do you think about it? Tannins are soft. And the last few things about Merlot I want to say is, being me as a small farm, and where all the wine is sold by myself outside of the tasting room. So the tasting room, we're now selling about 30% of the farm's wine. Within 2 years, it went from 5 to 30%. So very proud of that. But we also now we listed in all the top restaurants, and my most top list, if you look at the La Colombe groups, the Chef's Warehouse groups, all the top fine restaurants, all of them, they love using this Merlot and the Cabernet Franc. Those are always, for me, I love selling it because I always get listings of it because it's such a great value for money as well. I mean, if you look at your top other Merlots, you're not going to pay what you pay for this Merlot. So I think it's again very important. At the end of the day, you can talk as much as you want, you can explain everything, but at the end of the day, the quality and price ratio needs to, we want to over deliver on quality against price. So I think you get that, Barry. So absolutely. So yeah, so if you ever visit the Cape, you'll see this Merlot listed in all the top places. All the chefs tell me they like pairing Merlots with things like, always coming up is game dishes. They also tell me that pork belly is probably the most common thing that chefs tell me they like to pair the Merlot with. But I think you can pair it with so many things. I've done so many wine evenings with chefs that they even use it as a pairing with a dessert. So yeah. So that's the important thing. And also what I like about it, it drinks nicely. So that's the important thing. And that's what it's a very simple concept, but I look after the consumer also with the terroir and science. What does he like to drink? And that is important. I think that you'll get it right through the range. Right, so Merlot is done. Let's move to the Cab Franc. We're going to pour 2 wines here. I'm so excited about that. We're gonna go to the standard Cab Franc or the normal Cab Franc on the right hand, on this side, on your right hand side, facing you, and then we go to the limited release Cabernet Franc. The standard Cab Franc, as I explained in the vineyard, is that clone 214, which is 60% of the wine, and that's blended with the clone 1, which is the South African 40% of the wine. So this you get a sensation of black fruits, black cherry, earthy, wet soil with maturation. You always get a bit of graphite character, which is typical to Banhoek wines, in generally on Cabernet Sauvignon also. And this is the one I love to drink, Barry. I love to drink this one. And it's such a nice food one. You get so many. You can do it. Barry was an ex-chef, so I think he will. He could also play around nicely. But there's so many food options you have with Cab Franc. I've done so many wine evenings with Cab Francs, and going. Even the one chef told me once in a restaurant in Franschhoek, I think it was called Bouillabaisse, they were Belgian people, and they told me they want a Cab Franc with a crayfish. I said, no, shit, you cannot do this, please. I mean, obviously, pastas, meats, all that. Crayfish, and it worked. It also worked. So this is your standard Cab Franc, and then this is the Bordeaux clone, the limited release. This is the Cabernet Franc, as I showed you, the Bordeaux clone, single vineyard, the more red fruit character, and I got thousands of people starting to drink Cab Franc because, like I told you, I blindfold people and they don't know what they're drinking. Lift up the cover and I think, my God, this can't be Cab Franc. This must be Cabernet Sauvignon, and it's Cab Franc. And then I get them to drink the Cab Franc. So this was a leader in the pack that got us to drink more Cab Franc. And like I said, in 2005 was the first Cab Franc I made, which was only one. All the clones together, and in 2007 I split it into these two versions. And these two versions is still the same up till, what are we now, 18 years later, it's still the two versions. So let's pour both of them in the glasses, Barry. Right, so let's do the standard first. So what do we smell here? Again, I'm not so much bothered about the smell, as long as the sensations you get, Barry, is the sensations you get. And how more you taste and smell wine, the more your sense develop. So I don't like book knowledge. I like that you must drink your wines and explore and do it regularly and make your own notes. It's drinking so soft and elegant. There's an elegance, but there's also a richness to the wine. So I can happily sit and just drink this wine. I think that's for me is important. I mean, I say you judge a bottle of wine if you sit on your own or with a friend, without any outside influence, and you share that bottle and you think about a wine. And if you don't want another bottle, the wine is not great. That's the one thing. And I think that's important how the wine drinks, and I think that is my philosophy. And I think a lot of people, that's a simple statement, but a lot of people loses that thing. So you want to taste this is Cab Franc, but you also want to enjoy the drinking of it. And I think that's why my style is a little bit different than your Loire Cab Franc. I do enjoy that, but a lot of people don't enjoy those very grassy green Cab Francs. I do enjoy it, but I think it's important that the wine must drink, like you said, creamy and soft. And you guys need to obviously taste the wines yourselves. And when I'm getting in contact with you, you need to come to the tasting room, or I'm going out to Brazil soon, and I'm gonna let the guys taste there. So yeah, we export to various markets. We export a lot to Europe, Germany, Switzerland, England. East is Japan, America, and I'm on my way to Brazil. Maybe looking for that we're going to get a nice little market there. So now we go to the limited release, and I am a little bit. It's a bit sad that that we're selling the 23 already. I feel there's a bit more grippiness to it. There's a little bit more tannin. It's soft enough, but it's more grippy. But there's a more complexity to this one. I think it would like a bit more food, and the other one you can just sit and drink, and it's maybe a bit more smooth. But this is an aging wine. But this was the wine that got people to drink more Cabernet Franc, because they felt in their head, and I think it also shows here that there's a little bit more tannin. It's a bit more grippy. It's typically like a Cabernet Sauvignon, a bit more, and there's a bit more red fruit. Although the 23 vintage doesn't show it so much, Barry.
Yeah.
Normally in other vintages there's more red fruit on this
Absolutely.
one.
But
So that got people to hey, but this is interesting. This is Cab Franc. Yeah, I enjoy it. Let's look at the original variety, or the original style, and that's why I've got so many people to drink it. We do a lot of effort in it, and it's a wine very close to my heart. If I'm an old man one day, I would like in my garden a few Cab Franc vines, and I could just at least make one barrel of Cab Franc and enjoy it with my friends. You
and
know.
you,
And I think now we're going to go to the Cabernet Sauvignon. Most people, of course, we have the Syrah in our range as well, where I showed you the vineyards. Most people would do a wine tasting where they would start with the Syrah, or maybe I do it after the Merlot based on the depth or weight of the wine. But I like to end it because it's more the spicy white pepper sort of character. So I don't want to put it in the purity of fruit. So I want to express the purity of fruit with the Bordeaux varietals. So that's why we're going to end with the Syrah. So we're going to go to Cabernet Sauvignon. And then in the other glass, we're going to do the Family Reserve Bordeaux blend. And I'm going to talk about the two wines. Barry, are you happy to have some Cabernet
absolutely,
and some Bordeaux blend?
absolutely.
So let's start with the Cabernet Sauvignon. What I wanted to mention, sorry, I'm only mentioning it now. This is a very detailed artwork when my sister, she sat at the top of the Merlot block. And she is an artist. She is the artist. And she did on a charcoal drawing the farm and the rainbow, and from where we took that footage, she sat and did a drawing of the farm, which is quite unique. And the original drawing is in the tasting room, which we can show you now. On the label, obviously the trade name is Rainbow's End, estate, it's our own grapes, that importance I mentioned, and then the family crest and the signatures of my father, my brother, and myself. So yeah, my sister was the artist on it. But Cabernet, Barry, Cabernet, this is Cabernet country. Stellenbosch is Cabernet Sauvignon country. Banhoek, where we registered this ward, my father didn't mention it in his story. He's a very humble guy. He did the pioneer work of registering that ward, and in Banhoek, really everyone does great Cabernet Sauvignon. If you look at all the farms, Dale does good Cabernet as the base of the blend. Bartony has got good Cabernet. Telima really is the pioneer of Cabernet Sauvignon. But Telima and Larice was the Cabernet Sauvignon guys, starting in the 80s, with maybe Riston Frere as well. And then even if you go down to Vierberg makes a good Cabernet, and I think Rainbow's End does lovely Cabernet as well. Right, so we're on the Cabernet, and Barry, why this Cabernet Sauvignon I think in this area does so well is because of the red oak leaf, red heart and swirls. Of course, if you go around this mountain, around Groot Drakensberg, the whole swirl profile changes to more sandy swirl, and that sandy swirl gives you more elegant Cabernets. I'm not talking it negatively, but it does. On this swirl type, if you go over Elshoogte from Delhi down to here and up here, we got the red oak leaf, which is more richer, fuller wine. So you're gonna have more richer Cabernets.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what the swirl type is also pretty much the same in Stellenbosch. So let's taste Barry. So what happens here? The 23 was quite. It was quite a cool and quite a wet season, but so you'll have a little bit less density of fruit in this specific vintage. But the exactly what you say, Barry, is I think you get that and with aging of this wines, it's amazing how the graphite character comes. But I don't like just graphite with pencils, so I don't like it. You want the fruit and the graphite and the earthiness to play around. So I think, and it's still a Cabernet at 23. You mustn't have a wine that you can have now as a 23 and it falls flat after 5 years. You want wines that can mature for 10 to 20 years. For that guy that wants that opportunity, and if you do that, you're going to have more earthy flavors coming out. The wine's going to become softer, but the fruit profile is going to become less. So it depends how you like to enjoy the wine. I can happily drink this. So yeah, this is where I explained in the barrel cellar, the family reserve. So you sat there and you checked out the 24 family reserve on that barrel. So the 24 family reserve is still in the barrel, and it's 2 years in French oak, but this is the 23 that's just been bottled. It was bottled in May. Label still my sister's artwork, a little bit more bigger label. But what is so amazing about this wine is that every bottle has got a specific number. So this is bottle number 3254, and this wine was the selection I made here was like I said, this is end of November in 2022. That was it was a selection of 5 barrels of Cabernet Franc, 4 barrels Merlot, 2 barrels Petit Verdot, and 1 barrel Malbec. So what I'm saying is you get Bordeaux blends in South Africa that they tend to go more left bank Cabernet driven, or this was the most common Bordeaux blends, or they tend to go more, or you got the other Bordeaux blend that's more right bank Merlot driven. But I don't believe in this. I believe take the best 12 units and put it together, and then you're going to have your ultimate family reserve of Bordeaux blend. So this has got quite a bit of new oak. You've got about 6 new barrels, you've got 6 new barrels, 3 second fills and 3 third fills, only Franche-Ferré and Boots barrels, and the wine you can drink now, but you can be rewarded with very long aging of this wine. So we also said we don't want to bring out the family reserve or Bordeaux blend until all the vineyards reach its full potential. We said we're not going to do that, and that was the first family reserve we brought. It was 2011, which we released in 2013. So yeah, we're very proud of this product. So let's taste Barry. How this wine will develop, I'm talking out of experience, because obviously I've kept the bottle since 2011. I see how the wine develops. But Barry, you will get a lot of more characters coming out and a bit more harmonization of the wine as you age it. So I would like to see how this wine develops 6 months, 12 months and so forth. But yeah, I'm happy to drink it right now. So we got the Syrah 2022. So we're actually sitting here in the vineyard with the Syrah around us here. This is the 174 clone, which was planted by my brother. And you feel, Barry, you're in the vineyard, eh? Look at the Syrahs around us. We've got that white peppery coming out of this Syrah, out of this 174 around the tasting room. But then, I don't know if you guys remembered when we went up on that eastern facing slope where it was planted north-south, there we got the Argentinian clones and the French clones, and it's all a combo of that. I would say this is more, we pick it quite, that's why I changed it from Shiraz to Syrah, because I feel this is more a connection to French round style Syrah rather than Shiraz. It's a cool climate, cool area, and a more the elegant style of Syrah. Let's taste. So the last wine here, totally different. The work that goes into this bottle of wine is, I worked very, very hard for 3 months of the year, Barry. In that critical period, you go 18-20 hours a day, but that's only, you know, if you only make red wines, so I'm lucky, it's 2 months that you work 18 hours a day, but the rest of it is the vineyards. The winemaker is totally overvalued in my opinion. You need to do your thing, but if you don't have the grapes, you can't do anything.
It is just amazing.
Cheers, Barry.
Thank you.